But yeah, obviously, we are here to talk about Daddy's Head, and being a Double Date fan, part of me expected that this might be a sequel given the title, given how Double Date
Sure.
ends, than Daddy's Head. But this is obviously it's a very different film. Where did the idea come from?
Well, it came from a shot that I had in my head when I was in my early 20s, and I think I was just trying to sort of, I don't know, freak myself out in the middle of the night, and I basically ended up dreaming of a shot of, this boy, this father's head coming over and smiling at his son, but he had this big smile, but his son's reacting in a loving way, and then the camera turned around, and you realize that the body that the body was he didn't have his body. And so I just always thought it was a really cool shot, and I don't know why. It's just one of those things you just hold on to it, right? You're just thinking there's something I really like about that. And then maybe 10 or 15 years later, I came up with a story for it, and I won't say it wasn't totally a horror, but I can sort of see some of the influences are going on, but I won't say because people have had different ideas about what Daddy's Head is kind of about. So I won't say the origins of those movies, of the movie, some of the inspiration. But I wrote this story in my head and was like, oh, that's really cool. And then sort of and it came together very quickly. It was 48 hours. I kind of just saw the story, didn't plan for it, just watched the cinema in my head and saw this movie play out and was like, okay, I really like Daddy's Head. That's a really interesting film. And then Matt Wilkinson, the producer, maybe 4, 5 years ago, said, if you've got a horror, I can probably get you some money. And so I was like, oh, well, I've got Daddy's Head, which is this. It wasn't, I had to then dial it into horror a little bit more, um, just a little bit to get it to fit the genre, but not much. And then went through the whole process, been developing the script. We were just about to go into production, and then I sort of had a brief round of therapy around my parents' divorce because I sort of had gone home to visited my family home, and I burst into tears when I saw it, and I was like, oh, I think maybe there's sort of some strong emotions inside me that I've never really kind of put together. And then when I had some therapy, I sat with a therapist and talked about my childhood, and then when she was like, "Can I ask you what your film's about?" And I kind of told her the story, and I said, "Oh, it's just about this boy in this house," and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, "Ben, like writing about like loads of elements of your childhood here." And if I said, and it was so obvious to me in a way when she said it, I went, "Oh God!" Like, and I didn't, it's like it's just so close to you that you pull your head away, and you're like, "Oh, I can see it for what it is." I was a little boy, he's very arty. My family basically exploded like I was about 11. They got divorced. I lived in a big house. My dad's a house builder, like architect. That's what he does for a living. I ended up having very quickly within the space of a year, family was all gone, house was all gone, and I had a sort of stepmother who wasn't really particularly very interested with me, and a mother who was maybe drinking a bit. Not, kind of, the alcohol had played a bit of a part around it. I'm very close to my parents, but I realized that obviously a lot of that had played a huge influence on what I thought was just a cool story. And then someone reveals like it's not just a cool story, it's completely influenced by your own experiences.
Yeah. Wow. And so much of the film is based, around this house and this property, but I guess my question was going to be, did you have that property in mind? But this has been a film that's been in the works for a number of years. So obviously it wasn't, how then did you sort of, transplant the story to that location?
Well, I mean, UK filmmaking is tough, and if we had a massive budget, you can just pick what you want, right? But we really had to try and stay within London if we could. Um, because it really helped the budget not to be having to farm crews out everywhere, putting everyone up, trying to keep it more sustained within London. So actually we just found this house, near Uxbridge. And you can actually see, from the drone shots when you're looking at it, you can see London in the background. Um, and actually, a few of my sort of main VFX shots I did in the film is the first time when you see the house and you see the whole mountains and landscape. That's all me. Like put that shot together. So uh, yeah, it's you're given what you're presented with, and then now what's lovely is people seem to sort of comment about how, the house sort of takes on this its own character. Um, and that's great because when you make something, you're just never sure how it worked, but if it does work, it seems to just take on a life of its own. Because in the script, it was originally it was massive, but hard to find.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like is that it feels there's certain films that I feel sort of like capture a season. And I think that this is one of them. I think there's just something like when you're watching it, you can feel the coldness of that environment that these two characters are living in. And then, that's exacerbated by, the house and the location outside. Was there any sort of thinking of trying to kind of capture that, that emotion almost?
Do you mean the emotion of describe it again? Sorry, what the of
It's just
its
the like
stark coldness and then the sort of rural kind of world
yeah,
around
it's
it.
just there's just something like when you're watching it, it feels it feels very wintry, in terms of both what you're sort of seeing outside and then, the relationship between these two characters as well. It's like, you sort of sat there watching it and you kind of feel that chill as a
Mm.
viewer.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's all. The original, we were going to shoot, so I had written it as, it's even in the script, I had written it as when the summer's over and you get that first sort of cold chills of sort of autumn. That was the sort of period that I was going to set it in, where it was all that sort of burning sunsets and the winters kind of drawing in, and it had that quite melancholic sort of feel. So that was actually in the script, and we nearly did it, but we had some scheduling problems, and then we had to push back. Um, so I was then presented with stark winter and all the leaves kind of falling off the trees. But it's nice because I mean those are just elements, right? That take on their own life when you make a film, and actually it is better that way than I think than having to be pushed back into the summer, and then suddenly everything's all warm and beautiful. And so yeah, the stark coldness all just comes really actually in the end from it was purposeful, but more of a scheduling issue as well.
And there's a lot of silence in the film as well. And I think there's this misconception by audiences that, it must be dead easy to make a film be quiet. But, you've got to have it be quiet and still have it, keep people, interested and invested. How did you kind of work to that? Because this is not a film that's, loud noise, jump scare heavy. This is much more,
Mm.
sort of like quiet and somber.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of stuff to that, and I can feel in my head. I'm like, try and whittle this down, Ben. It's like I composed the score in the film anyway. So a lot of the process that I went through with that was actually about removing music more than it was in the end, sort of creating stuff. One of the things that had like so Exorcist had played. I mean, it's one of my favorite horrors. It's amazing, it had played a little bit of sort of influence in this. If you think about a mother watching a child and a child kind of going crazy, and so there'd always been like I knew Exorcist was working in the background there in my head, and then I think I'd got about halfway through the edit of the film, and a man came on and sort of helped me a bit. This guy called Julian Kemp, this director who knows Matt, he said I really like your film, and he was just kind of reminding. It was him who really helped me to see outside my head. I was kind of getting a bit sort of lost in the film, and he could recognize that I was doing it. He went to a test screen. He's like, I can see what you're doing. You're so in this, like you're just editing it and you're writing it, directing it, and composing it. And he helped me sort of pull my head back a little bit and go, look, look. And one of the things that was really interesting that I just talked a lot about films and horror and Exorcist, and then randomly Exorcist was on BBC right when this was happening, and I hadn't watched it in a long time, and I put it on, and it just jumped out so quickly that I was like, oh my God, there's like no music. It really showed me about how you can have rhythm in music and have like a long shot and the music is giving you a rhythm, or you can cut through at a pace and have the same rhythm, but there's no music. There's this relationship between the two. So basically my point being is the more and more I got into it, what you're talking about there, it took a lot of work, like 6, 7 months of editing. but was just trying to find that relationship between where I need a song and where I can just do it visually. And the more I sort of felt like, and films all have different tones, but with this film, it felt more like if I remove music, I feel less of a barrier between the audience that I'm trying to say, this is a horror, here's a motif, here's the motif horror sound that you're going to. I was like, no, this is much more of the right feeling. If like you watch Exorcist, it's 45 minutes of like nothing happening nearly,
Yeah.
to a degree, but you're just sitting there going, and it was Julian actually, Julian Kemp, who reminded me of the point. He was like, audience bring the horror. They're
Yeah.
they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you. So you don't need to run in there with all these like plowing them over the heads because they're so sensitive at that point when they're watching that you can be very delicate with that. So I think in the end that's where I got to with that film, if that makes any sense. The less is more and build a rhythm with them and how the viewer's watching it kind of thing.
And they say, the saying is, inside us all there are two wolves. Are your two wolves Daddy's Head and Double Date? Because, they can't be, more different from one another.
What? Give me that phrase again. What is that phrase?
The inside of us all there's two wolves. So like,
Huh. I've not heard that phrase before. Go
yeah,
on. So
yeah. So
meaning is in there's two conflicts, two things
yeah,
in conflict.
yeah,
Barking for dominance.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, not it's not that double date because that's Danny's film to a degree. That is me playing in a band and it's Danny lead singing up front and I'm kind of more playing, kind of guitar in the back and I'm just bringing some melody to it or whatever. But so that's very much his voice, and Daddy's Head is probably the first piece where I'm putting a voice to it. But that is interesting that you say that because I don't know. So in that case, I don't have another piece that is vying for dominance. But it is. I've never heard that phrase, and I like it because I've always said inside me is the boy and the man, and I'm always trying. I'm always at conflict with the two when I'm working, which is the boy wants to. In the case of say Daddy's Head, the boy just wants to make really scary, cool, creepy, weird, like whoa, and just it is like that. And the man in me wants to talk about myself or dissect my own emotions or talk about my experience and or you could say it's movies and art. It's like and these two things are always like smashing against each other. And Daddy's Head was the first time where it kind of all came out organically and happened and they melded together. And I think that's what I hope has sort of happened with Daddy's Head, which is like it's together as one. There are two pieces. I know it's not answering your question, but if I'm answering more the expression that I've not heard before of the
yeah.
two wolves.
No, it's great. I think that's kind of our time up. So thank you so much for having a chat, and best of luck with the release of this when it goes onto Shudder. Perfectly timed for for the Halloween season. So I'm sure that everyone's gonna gravitate towards it and really enjoy it.
Thanks, Kat. I appreciate all of your lovely words you've said about my films.
Honestly, I still champion Double Date. It's a great comedy, and it's I'm from Nottingham, so the fact that
Oh
there's
yeah.
yeah, the fact that there's Nottingham cast in it and stuff, it's it already had like sort of like a tick before I settled down to watch it. So yes, it's
Okay, nice, nice. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, for me and Danny, that film was like I was all at the Thelma and Louise moment. It kind of came out in the cinemas. We were like, yeah, bang, and just like nothing happened.
it
But
got I went to see it at the cinema. It got a Blu-ray. We've got that at home, so and
oh yeah,
it's yeah.
that's got the making of. Apparently, we did a commentary on that, and everyone was pissed and had an argument, had a fight. I've never listened back to it. I mean, I'm embarrassed listening back to it. Like actual, what's his name? Michael Socker and Kelly Wenham literally are genuinely like, fuck off. And like they're going at each other on the commentary.
I'm gonna have to check that. I haven't got around to the commentary yet. I'll have to do that with my
Check it
next
out
viewing.
towards the end. If you watch the last half an hour on the commentary, everyone is absolutely rinsed and they're and they're having a Barney with each other.
Nice. It's life imitating art, isn't it? Because it's about them that
Yeah.
they have their little fight in the film.
I think drunkenly I even say that, but I can't even remember which way round it is. I go, oh, it's like art, life imitating art.
Nice. Well, I'm going to let you go and speak to some more
All right,
people. And yeah, best
cool.
of luck with this one. And, hopefully we'll be talking about, film three in another few years.
Yeah, thank you, mate.